I'm going to ask you to see whether or not there is a relationship between or among the concepts of limited government, checks and balances, and loyal opposition.
Loyal opposition is certainly related to limited government and the rule of law in the sense that the existence of a loyal opposition in a legislative body serves to check the excesses of the majority, as Alexander Hamilton wrote in Federalist Number 70. In Federalist Number 70, he stated that once a decision in the legislative body has come to an agreement, that the minority must respect the decisions of the majority power. And we can see that this is, like Jennifer said, in accordance to the rule of law, because the minority must accept the decision that the majority power has made.
In addition, loyal opposition is related to checks and balances in that the idea of checks and balances is that ambition will counteract ambition, stated in Federalist Paper Number 51. And within the legislative process, the different parties and the different ideas of the people who draft the legislation will counterbalance each other.
And with limited government, we're trying to prevent the government from arbitrarily taking away people's rights. And with loyal opposition, when a lot of ideas are presented and different arguments from the minority as well as the majority are presented, there's more likely the formation of a limited government.
As I understand it, you're arguing that loyal opposition occurs solely within the legislative branch. Are there not possibilities for loyal opposition outside of the legislative branch?
Yes. For instance, the Tea Party, while would not fit the definition of loyal opposition because they are not part of the legislative branch, they are analogous to the loyal opposition because their platform is that they support fiscal conservatism and want less government action. And because they are so exposed to the media, they can push forward for their ideals and check the majority in power.
So why don't you just expand your definition then? Haven't you kind of narrowed yourself too much?
Because we're trying to draw a parallel between the British Parliament's definition of loyal opposition and our definition of loyal opposition. So since there is the formation of the shadow cabinet that sits as a minority power with most seats in the Parliament, we're trying to draw a similarity here.
The First Amendment, which you referenced in response to my question, also includes a freedom of the press. What is the relationship between the press and loyal opposition?
I would say that media, more specifically the press, has influenced loyal opposition in that it has both encouraged it and discouraged it. Erwin Chemerinsky, in his wrote in the Stanford Law Review that in recent times, because of the advent of media, the filibuster has been more exposed to constituents of the senators. And because of this, constituents have been more critical of their senators in making obstructive measures such as the filibuster, or will have encouraged them to be in loyal opposition of goals rather than to obstruct.
And with the passage of the healthcare bill, the Republicans are acting as a loyal oppositionists because they are the minority in power. And through avenues of the media, such as freedom of the press, and through videos that were circulated online at the healthcare summit, we can see that while the Democrats wanted to push for expansion of healthcare for 30 million people over the time of 10 years, the Republicans pointed out that we are in a national debt and that their ideals were too hard to strive for because of so much money that the Democrats were putting into the healthcare bill.
The media also serves as a possibility of limiting loyal opposition because the senators and congressmen still have their jobs to worry about. If they don't, if they assume a delegate form where they are solely attuned to their constituents' need, they may not be loyally opposed to majority policy and fear that they will not be up for re-election.
However, I think, I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just want to follow up on something that you just said, and it fits with your opening presentation, because you said one of the benefits of the loyal opposition is to slow government down, and you said that the Republicans now acting on healthcare were acting as the loyal opposition. But here's my question. There was never really a doubt that there were at least 50 votes in the Senate for the healthcare, and that those 50 votes probably represented the majority of the American population. Yet it took a very long time to get that bill passed. Do you think that's a good example of the government slowing down, or do you think it's a negative example?
Well, I think it's a good example because the founders never intended for pure majority rule, and so a simple majority in the Senate to pass healthcare would not be consistent with the views of the founders.
And actually, even though there were the sufficient 50 votes within the Senate, the Republicans argue that there was no consent of the government for the healthcare bill because in a people, 52% of constituents actually opposed the healthcare bill, and so I would argue there is some consent of the government.
I would argue that this would be a negative example of deliberation within our history, because I believe that the Republican efforts to kill the bill, such as the introduction of poison pill amendments, of introducing gun control amendments into the healthcare bill, was adverse to the common good, in that they wanted to kill a bill rather than to deliberate and discuss on it, and rather than propose an alternative solution.
Okay. What would be the test for something being a loyal opposition and something being obstructionist?
Well, first I'd like to clarify that obstructionism is not inherently a negative term. There can be both positive and negative obstructionism. But the test to determine the difference between loyal opposition and obstructionism is that obstructionism abuses, or one who obstructs, abuses procedure and paralyzes government.
While a loyal oppositionist will follow procedure in order to encourage deliberation or to pursue an alternative policy.
An example of obstructionism occurred during the 1960s of the Civil Rights Movement because Strom Thurmond decided to abuse legislative procedures by abusing the filibuster because he talked for 24 hours in order to discourage the civil rights legislation, which, if it had not passed, would not have guaranteed equal opportunity for all people despite gender and race.
And to provide an example of positive obstructionism, we could look to when Congress tried to dump toxic waste or nuclear waste under the Yucca Mountains, and Senator Harry Reid pulled out, as he called it, every procedural tool in the book to kill this bill because he believed that it would have a negative effect on the state's health.